Welcome back to another episode of Buckle Up, an ultra running conversation with Simon and Brian. How are you doing this evening, Simon?
I'm doing great. I'm off from my race last weekend, which was Leona Divided. And we had a nice buckle. So the race was on April, I think, 12th, but the buckle says April 20, which is really interesting. We're still in the period of time now that the buckle is from the future. But the race went well. And I don't know if it was luck, but it just happened that there were so many runners there that had seen my movies and my tip video and were like, hey, Simon, like, it's so great to see you. And it's always a great feeling, right? Like, that's why I have a YouTube channel to inspire people. That's why we have the podcast is to bring stories that are interesting. And it's great to see that, beyond like the numbers or these things, like you see real people that you're really impacting. That was a great feeling. I did feel like shit at some point, but that's the usual level of feeling like shit in 100 mile. But beyond that, it was a good race. How about yourself? How are your knees?
420, huh, Simon? 420 is the
Four
race
four
date. That's
twenty. Yes,
okay. Just pointing out
it's very
maybe not
deliberate, I think.
maybe not so obvious, but I'm doing well. I was on the road for 10 days or so. I had a lot going on. We had high school track, and then I went down to the Arizona Monster 300. I ran mile 251 aid station, Oak Tree aid station. I could only share my experience. I heard some other things going on online and behind the scenes and some other rants in the digital world that we live in. But my experience was that we were short on volunteers. I had 9 on my list. Unfortunately, only 2 showed up. I was the third. So we were super tight at first, but it worked out in the long run. 2 runners dropped at mile 60 that knew each other and had worked aid stations before, and they still either had the vacation time or didn't want to go home or still wanted to participate. So they came out to my aid station and they worked their butts off. So the 5 of us held down the fort for the remainder of the aid station duration. And if I'm being honest, it was a little skinny. As the aid station captain, I was worried about some of the supplies coming in. But from the runner's point of view, I don't think we ever turned anyone away from ice or water or any of the necessities or sleeping. At one point, we had so many blankets out on people and covering people and keeping them warm through the night that I was about to pull the blankets out of my own sleeping bag in my own bed in the back of my pickup truck. Was the next step if one more runner would have came in. So it was a little skinny, it was a little tight, it was a little nerve wracking as the aid station captain. But again, I don't think the runners were affected by it
Yeah, I
firsthand.
mean, it's interesting. And I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of people talking online, and it started even before like you guys were back from it, right? Like while you were out there, it was actually
Mm-hmm.
interesting to hear so much, and quite frankly, it was only negative, right? Like what you would hear at that point, like, so much bad press, but it was not from people that were mostly not from people that were necessarily out there, or it was from people that were out there, but the one that were just having a good time, maybe were not able to speak up. So I'm curious with time how it's gonna be. But yeah, it does give the impression from outside that first year events can be a little bit problematic, and that's been true for other races before. But I think you also highlight something that's pretty important. It's volunteers. These races really exist and are good because of the volunteers, not just the volunteers, obviously the race organization, but if the people are not there at the aid station, I mean, you're only one person. You guys are 3 people to run an aid station, and eventually 5 people that was open for, I assume, several days. You have to sleep sometimes. You have to poop in the bucket sometimes, So it can be tough, and that shows the importance of people volunteering and supporting race organization. And I guess race director to not take people for granted.
So I've worked for Destination Trails before at
Mm.
Moab and a bunch of different years, and I kind of know the system and the way it works. Being a later aid station at mile 251, they don't have enough gear to outfit every aid station with everything they need. So when the first aid station closes, they leapfrog it to the next one that needs something. And so eventually I did get my stuff, the gear that I
Okay.
needed, but it takes a while. And the runners were, the timing of the runners and where they were at and what I needed wasn't coming quick enough. Luckily, I was about 20 miles away from the finish line. Even though I was mile 251, they had 51 more miles to cover on ground. But
Mhm.
for driving directions, I was only 20 miles away. So we did make one run straight to the finish line and kind of finagled some gear that we were desperately in need of. just to
Yeah.
cook and stuff like that. We had broken one of the legs on a stove, and it's obviously a critical piece to feed people. So we went and confiscated another stove. But otherwise, I mean, I don't think, from my point of view, again, I can only speak from my experience. I don't think any of the runners were affected, and it is kind of expected. It's just still nerve wracking. It doesn't make it any easier, when you're running,
Yeah.
almost running out of stuff, and there's more people coming. But we survived. They
Yeah.
survived. Everyone had a great time. Everyone got rest.
Yeah, I think also, criticizing an event or a race, I think can be healthy sometimes. I think there's a way to do it where, when it gets a little bit more personal attack, I don't think that's necessarily productive. Like if you hate on someone, then what's the point? But I think there are things that they can learn, and the race was obviously not perfect. That's clear. There's no smoke without fire. Is that how we say it in English? So
Hmm.
obviously there are things that could be improved, and then if there can be a constructive dialogue, especially with people like you that were there and a station captain, say, hey, like we were a bit short on this and a bit short on that, and we need more people next year. Hopefully they can learn from that, and then they can create a better event. Because I mean, there's no denying that Destination Trail has run some good events, and I don't know how you feel it compares to the one you're most familiar, I think, is Moab 240, right? And do
Hmm.
you think it's the same level, or you think Moab 240 has its shit together a little bit better, and hopefully Munster can kind of get up there?
It's a good question. I think Moab has history now. It started in 2017, but I think in 2017 it needed some refining as well. And
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. Like, there are things that I could have done better that I'll fess up to, and it's a learning curve for me as a aid station captain. There's things that I will point out to the people that I report to on little nuances that I think might help them in the future, help us in the future, because I do want to go back and do it. But I don't need to make those public by any means. I
Yeah.
could just share that with the race management team, and hopefully get that message across in a quieter format, and just kind of
Yeah.
work through the process that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I personally, I feel that's the most productive way. Like, of course, if someone is really problematic in the racing world, like we should sometimes speak up. But at the end of the day, what I care about is that there are some good race out there, and there's diversity in race organization, and not the power is too concentrated in a single place. So let's be constructive and make something better next year. Hopefully, I mean, they have to decide if they do it again. I guess they have already decided, but yeah. Yep.
So April. It is April 16th, the day after taxes are due in the
So if
country
you
here.
hear this and you haven't filed your tax, it
Yeah,
is
you
officially
should
too
probably
late.
you should reach out to somebody, and maybe file
Yeah.
for an extension. But where I was going with this is that we got Cocodona coming up, and I think that's your next
Mhm.
event, if I'm not mistaken. But I do want to back up a second and kind of just talk about Buckle Up podcast, yours and I relationship with this platform that we've been doing for, gosh, I think we've done 60 episodes already. So once a week for 60 weeks. So a little bit more than a year's worth of time. And you have some big news for us. So I'll go ahead and let you share that.
Yes, and well, if we have 60 episodes, we've done more episodes than I've run 100 miles, which is crazy when you think about it. But it's close, right? It's really close. Yeah, well, so I mean, there's no nice way to say it, but I'll be stepping down from the Buckle Up podcast. I think right now my life has been just so busy, combining racing a lot, training a lot, spending time with my wife, and also obviously work. That at some point it feels like I need to sacrifice quality a little bit in all of these aspects of my life. So because of that, I feel that the best thing to do for myself, but also for the show, because quite frankly, there's some episode that I felt I was not able to prepare myself enough for the guest. And if the guests take the time to come in the show, if people taking the time to listen, I feel that having good preparation is important. So I don't want to skim on that, and I think stepping down is the best path forward. Doesn't mean we're still friends. So if I want to come back, you want to have me, like I'll show up, right? It's gonna be fun, but otherwise, yeah, I'm stepping down from this show. It's been a fun adventure, a growth adventure. I don't know if you've listened to our first few ones when we had the different background and the bad sound, and it's interesting, and it's interesting both to think about the great episode that we had, great connection with the guests. I mean, some of them that I like, I don't know the number because I would want to point them out, but some that I really love, like there's the Lorena episode, the cancer survivor. I
Hmm.
think that was a very powerful message. Deshana was racing this weekend, right? She
Hmm.
did the a Munster 300. Her story was also very touching. That was not necessarily an episode that I felt was easy to do. Like it was, I don't know if painful is the way to say it, but it was really, you could feel the pain, and unfortunately that's a little bit contagious. But I think it's a story of courage and strength that was important to share. Melissa also was a fun episode that we had. So a lot of great episodes. Some of them, some of them were really worth rewatching, and we had a great time, right? So I mean, it's sad. At the same time, I think we built something that is interesting, and I'm eager to see where the show will go from here.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Simon, stepping up. Gosh, I asked you over a year ago. I don't even know how I approached you, but it wasn't about a podcast. It was about, I think, a coffee talk with Coach Brian. It was my idea initially, and somehow the conversation, like within the first 20 minutes, evolved into a podcast, and we were off and running. And yeah,
Yeah.
that first episode's kind of funny, really funny to watch and listen to. The audio and video qualities, it's pretty far back there, pretty dated already, and it's only 60
Yeah.
episodes ago.
It's
We've come a
old
long way,
technology,
actually.
right?
Yeah. It's old tech.
Yeah,
And you're
yeah,
absolutely
a
right.
year
I
ago.
saw at the Monster, gosh, I was like going down memory lane at the Monster 300 with some of the guests, West Plate, Deshauna. Gosh, we just had some great ones that were at Monster and
Yeah, I was
participating.
actually following all of them, and it was interesting. Like there was what's his David Everson also that
David Everson
I
did
think
really
he's
well and
injured though,
finished.
but
Yeah.
he's having a big season. Like he's having a season that when you look at the calendar, it's like, wait, that's my calendar. It's like, no, actually, someone else doing that too, apparently. But yeah, I mean, it felt like the monster watching, from the satellite. I was like, hey, that's all of our guest list that we had, and then some that maybe we should invite someday.
So I have a 10 by 10 tent, and I have a logoed wall, and it looks just like this chalkboard wall behind me. And a couple people asked me if I brought the studio set with me to Monster 300 because it looked like I did. Yeah. It was fun though. It was great. And I've had a great time just getting to know more about you, and we've really worked out our banter quite a bit with the whole "how are your knees" joke that some people still take seriously, but so I
You're still
appreciate your
concerned.
time, and yeah, still concerned about my knees. Yep. So we'll move on, and if you're listening now, I'm going to continue with the show. I'm still kind of in the process of figuring out the next steps, but I'm looking for a co-host, and I'm still plugging in new guests to interview and talk about ultra running, whether it's specific to running or kind of how they fit into our niche ultra running world. So yeah, so I'll continue on with the show. But Simon, you have just a huge summer coming up. I think the next one you have, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be Cocodona. There might be some between there because
Yeah,
if you know
you're
Simon,
absolutely mistaken, but that is okay. Yeah, actually, my next one. Well, so the next few weeks are pretty busy. In 5 weeks, I'll be running four ultras and three of 100 and one of 250, which that's
Shiz.
pretty packed. There's no denying that. I've already done one of them. Went fine, and my body is fine. But the next one is Canyon Ultras. For whatever reason, I was so convinced that it was maybe 3 hours away from where I live driving. It's not. It's way for California is big. This is the summary of that. So I have to book my travel arrangement because it's next weekend. And then yeah,
Mm,
Cocodona. Then I'm doing Cruel Jewel. For those not familiar with Cruel Jewel, that's a pretty tough one. It's
hmm
one or if not the toughest on the East Coast. With 33,000 feet of gain, it can be hot and humid. Right after Cocodona, less than a week to heal. We'll
Oof.
see. I'm hesitant about it. I think it's one of those that I'll really have to do a game time decision of is it smart right now to go or not.
hmm
Because if I feel physically I cannot do it, then I'm just gonna skip it and save my body for the rest of the season. Because the focus this year is, despite this kind of crazy period, is really more on 200. So I'm doing the Triple Crown. I was supposed to do Monster 300, but then I had to cancel for personal reason. I am busy. That's not a fake excuse when I'm stepping down from the show. So it was because of that, and then I was lucky enough to get into Cocodona, Triple Crown, and then I'm doing Swiss 360 or 380, which is going to be a little bit similar to Tour des Géants, but on the Swiss side. So I don't know, more
Mm.
chocolate and cheese. I don't know the difference. I think it's going to be a great event, really. If anything, they'll speak more French, which will be good for me. So I'm very eager to that race for sure, and then a bunch of 100 here and there. But you have a pretty big season too, though, and
Gosh, that doesn't
it's
sound.
coming up.
Mine doesn't sound. Yeah, mine doesn't sound as stacked as yours. Obviously. Yeah, I do have five. I have five races this summer. Four of them being in the Grand Slam of Ultra Running, which Simon has two of them back there. I could see him in the
Yep.
two of
Here
the
is
heads
the
up there. Yeah,
trophy, and
yeah.
then the
So I'm looking.
buckles are a little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking for one of them trophies this year. So I'm going minus Western States. I'm doing the Grand Slam, and then in October 3rd, after the Grand Slam, I will be going to Kansas for the Hell Creek 140. So 540
Hmm.
miles for the summer. Ended off with a little bit longer than a 100 miler. I'm still I mean, gosh, if I put a number towards it, I guess I'm about 85% from being injured, and I'm back on the mend, and I'm running really well.
That's
But
good.
it's still there; it's still lingering a little bit. But I am putting pressure on it and kind of ramping up some miles and running a bit more. So that's where I'm at,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
it's good.
staying healthy will be the big one for sure. And I mean,
Hmm.
you're going for your big boy in the Leadville, which is also pretty exciting. Not to jinx it, touching some wood, but it's a
Yep,
big
definitely.
deal.
So yeah, inside of the Grand Slam will be my potential 10th finish at Leadville, which is like basically like a turkey platter size belt. I think for me, I'm a smaller guy. I think it's like hip to hip on me. It's like full edge to edge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those 20 years buckle for real though. It's like a plate, like it's huge.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a
It's
turkey
pretty cool.
platter. Like the other one's like a sandwich plate, and the big ones are big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to definitely check in with you, Simon, and see how things are going. We'd love to keep in touch with you and check in periodically and hear all about your racing season and how things are shaping up.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, obviously, people can see my race on my YouTube channel, but it's
Hmm.
always fun to have these chats a little bit. I think it gives the opportunity, and that's partly why the podcast I felt was a really good thing. It gives the opportunity to talk more. I know that sounds stupid, but
Hmm.
because it's a little bit less, it's not even script, but it's more. You go with the flow in the podcast, like you just talk, and that really leads to story. When even it's talking about my race, I will say stuff that are not in the movies, but then we also meet people that you can't really tell the story. When I'm making a movie about my race, I can't tell the story, say, of Deshaun. Like that's way
Hmm.
too profound, and podcast was a great thing for that. So yeah, you can see my race in the beautiful landscape, but I'll be happy to come here and tell you all the gossip from the race itself.
Yeah, that's right. It's a conversation, and it's hard to have a conversation in the video format that you
Yeah.
provide on YouTube. So, yeah, we'll keep checking in on your videos, and we'd love to have you back anytime. So we'll periodically check in with you, Simon, for sure. And again, I appreciate all your hard work and effort that you put into the podcast for over 60 episodes, and we wish you all the best of luck and success.
Yeah, I mean, likewise, and I think it's good to tell people like, I mean, obviously we were two hosts, but I like the bulk of the work has been you for sure. I mean, guest, yeah, we would split, but I think the most interesting guest, like the one that has good connection, is definitely Brian. It's Coach Brian. Including the coaching world and having like nutritionist or a dietitian coming in, like that's definitely coming from you, and all of the editing, and I really want to thank you for that, because I wouldn't have been able to be on the podcast at all if you
Hmm.
hadn't put so much more work than I have. Like, yeah, sure, I show up, I talk, and I try to make joke. I try my best to be funny, which is, trying is all you can ask, right? But I think the show is really in good hands, because the core of it, and the heart and the hard work really came from you, and I do recognize that, and I really want to thank you for that, because it
Thanks.
has not been balanced, and I do recognize that. So thank you for everything, and it's been fun. I mean, the
Yeah, yeah.
banters were always fun.
Yeah, I think we've become better friends through the process, and the whole thing. So we'll continue our friendship outside of the podcast, obviously. Um,
Yeah, on
and
trail,
yeah,
right? Even
yeah,
though I do run faster than you, so we rarely talk on trail, because
at the starting
you
line, at
start
the starting
ahead
line.
of me and then I pass you. That's the classic. I
That's
don't
the
think there's any
classic.
race you haven't done that.
Yeah, I'll pass you in like the first mile, and then you'll pass me at mile 30, and then we'll never see each other again.
Yes, and when it's
It's pretty
Leadville, then
typical.
I always worry that you're falling more and more. It's like, Brian's not gonna make it. Brian's not gonna make it. And then
Mm.
golden hour,
Yeah.
Brian is always there.
I'll come trickling up over the hill in the golden hour. Gosh,
Exactly. You like to.
I don't need any more golden hour finishes. I need to kind of get that done in 28 hours just to kind of take a deep breath
Yes.
and relief.
I know it's a tangent, but I'm not the fastest runner, but I tend to not be close to cutoff usually. Like I have a buffer
Mm.
of 2, 3 hours pretty much all the time. So I don't really think about it. But last weekend, actually, like I was close to cutoff because of the way the cutoff were, but like I was within 1 hour, and like it's stressful a little bit. Like it feels like someone is breathing down your
Hmm.
neck, and you're like, I'm tired right now. I just want to sit down and relax a little bit. It's like, no, you gotta go right now, right now, right now. And
Hmm.
it's stressful. Like if you miss a turn, I mean, Leadville, I think you know the course, but like for me, I don't know
Hmm.
the course. I miss a turn, I go 1 mile in the wrong direction. It might be game over just from missing a turn. So it's stressful to be tight. So yes, I do recommend a
Hmm.
28-hour finish. Yes, please do that.
And I actually have the same fear about Old Dominion. Actually, I think Old Dominion is
Mhm.
28 and 24, and so that's a little bit quicker. I mean, I've been running 29 hours in the mountains here, and so I don't know what to expect for Old Dominion, but 28 hours seems pretty quick. And I just haven't been there in a while, so I can't remember the last time I ran 27, 28 hours for 100, just because they've been a little tougher.
Yeah, but the course is easier than much easier than Leadville. I think like the first 40 miles, like you'll have a little bit of trail, but I feel the first 40 miles are basically on road,
Mm,
and like you really do make up some time there. So the sub 24 is a little difficult, but I think 28 is somewhat. It feels
mhm,
28 hours easier there than 30-hour Leadville.
mm.
But it's something I feel is not uncommon with older races, that the overall cutoff is a little bit tighter. You know, Leadville is 30 hours, but if they created Leadville today, I feel it would be 36 hours, which is great. I think it's like enabling people that are maybe not as fit, but will keep going to make the sport a little bit more accessible. But the old timer race, they wanted you to run and not just power hike. Unfortunately, you will have to run a little
Yeah,
bit at Old Dominion. Expect
I'll
that.
have to run. Yeah, yeah, I will. Well, thank you so much, Simon. We appreciate it, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll keep checking on Running with Simon on YouTube and all the other channels.
This sounds good. Yeah, call me anytime. That was fun. Thanks for everything.